What can we learn from anthropology, the study of tribes as yet untouched by civilization's relentless march? Is it possible that some tribes have entirely different values because of a spiritual belief or by some coincidence of geography? And is it possible that Republicans and Democrats, left and right, have fundamental differences that are evolved rather than cultural ones? I spoke to Philippa Perry, the psychiatrist and writer and artist, about this very subject. The last 5-10 years has seen the rise of what do I want to say, public intellectuals that, in a couple of instances from your field, like whether Jordan Peterson or Gabor Mate, who apply principles of psychoanalysis and psychotherapy to broader social issues. Is that something you do yourself, and have you got an opinion on that?
I like to apply all theories about human beings onto all situations, and I like to do sort of cross fertilization of different disciplines as well. I'm very interested in anthropology and how we behave as groups, say, and I love particularly reading the very politically incorrect stuff about previously uncontacted tribes. I mean, it's politically incorrect because, we tend to impose our values on them and see them through that lens and give them our coals, which is terrible because it kills them. So we shouldn't be going around contacting uncontacted tribes. But when people have done that, and I've read their studies, I've been absolutely fascinated. And one of the main things that fascinates me about it is there's a woman called Margaret Mead who, oh God, what's the name of her book? Can't remember. But she did this sort of looking at different tribes and their cultures and their attitudes. And in Papua New Guinea, she found the Arapesh and the Mungador. And the Arapesh had, they were really chill. They loved each other. They cooperated. They collaborated with each other. All their babies were child-led weaning. They played with their kids all the time. They had equal parenting, equal work. They were totes chill and really nice people. However, they were so nice that they only had the stony ground to live on and so they quite often went a bit short of food and they didn't have much stuff. They had the rocky shore, but the fish came and went, so they had no kind of sustainable source of food. Whereas the Mungador, who lived in the valley, they were aggressive. You could tell when Mungador people had sex because both parties would be covered in scratches because the way of having sex was to attack each other. They breastfed standing up, and as soon as the baby sort of stopped for air, they'd hang it back on a basket on the wall again. They were kind of brutal. And they argued, they fought, they killed each other, they were cannibals. But they had the lush valley. They had the beautiful, fertile ground so they could grow really good crops. They had surplus so they could buy stuff. They could get nice, woven stuff. They bought fancy flutes from other tribes and stuff. So they had stuff and they were comfortable and they didn't starve, but they had horrible personal relationships. And the Arapesh didn't have much, but they loved each other. And it's a bit like Democrats and Republicans, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of like, I'm out for me and I want my stuff. Oh, but we should share. And I feel like that kind, and there's other tribes as well. There's the Maori and the Maori-Ari from the Pacific Islands. That the Maori were the aggressive warriors, which is why we've got them around today and they survived. But the Maori-Ari, I might be getting the names of all these tribes wrong because I'm very dyslexic. They were the chill hunter-gatherers that never had any surplus, and they were wiped out by the other ones. So it's difficult, isn't it? What do we be? Do we be Arapesh and not have enough to eat and be wiped out? Or do we be Mungador and trample over everyone? And there must be, I think our job is to be something in the middle, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it stands to reason that whatever the dominant values are of our time are the values that have succeeded, that in a sense are the product of evolution and the sort of natural selection, or indeed agricultural, industrial or technological selection of our time, now that power dynamics have shifted so radically and huge decisions can be made by a relatively concentrated group of people. But it's almost a social Darwinian's dream to hear that the Mungadors were living it up in lush valleys while the Arapesh was scratching around in pebbles for a bit of grain and hoping that a fish might turn up once in a while.
Yeah, but the Mungador killed each other with aggression, but the Arapesh died from starvation. So it's a lose-lose situation being human, isn't it?
Certainly, if death is considered as a bad result, then you have to acknowledge, we all know where it's heading. But I think also a lot about anthropology in the sense of its application to me and people now. I feel like that in my own life, I think, how can I emulate, if not synthesize, conditions that would be amenable to what I am evolved for what we have evolved for hundreds and thousands of years, so that we're not entirely dislocated, or as Sebastian Junger says in his book Tribe, we live in conditions it's difficult to imagine a worse condition for the type of animal we are than living in concentrated, cellular, atomized, aggressive, greedy.
We are pack animals. We should be in a village of about 140 people, and we should be in a family of about 15, and we should have about 6 close friends.
Yeah. But beyond that, it gets tricky.
Beyond that, it gets tricky because people have different values and believe different things.
Yes, that's right. And my understanding from primates is a group will split at around 140 and sort of reform itself. And there's lots of studies about sort of the myth of the alpha male and the way that actually there's alpha female, beta males and females that sort of in a delicately balanced ecosystem of hierarchical power. I do feel, though, that particularly at this sort of a rather fractured time that you've already alluded to in your sort of Mungador Arapesh analogy, as well as accurate historical recounting, perfectly pronounced, by the way, that we sort of live at this time where I feel it is becoming evident that there is such an ideological diaspora that we're trying to rein it in, enshrine it under one dome of America or the United Kingdom, when perhaps these these ideas of the idea of nation has perhaps served its purpose, has taken us as far as it can.
It's beginning to feel a little bit false and a little bit old-fashioned, isn't it? Because the nations that seem the most powerful as the nation of Amazon or the nation of Microsoft, like these big companies seem to have more power. I wouldn't be surprised if they start getting their own armies soon.
Wow.
Digital armies or something. Because it does seem a bit odd the way we've organized ourselves. And if you look at territories on a map where all the, on an animation where all the boundaries move the whole time, nothing stays the same. And maybe our nationhood thing, we're the best country in the world, has outlived its usefulness or purpose.
Yeah, even its plausibility, because there are so many opposing values corralled into these, let's face it, ultimately imaginary conceptual notions. It's about our history, it's about sort of ethnicity, or no, it's about diversity, progressivism, it's about, stuff. It's like I'm increasingly feeling, as long as people aren't hurting anyone else, let them set up their own tribe, but they do the hell they want. It's like in these recent fractures.
What the hell they want might be to kill me.
I think that falls under the first bit, hurting other people. They can't kill you.
Oh, okay, you had that thing. That's good.
In the sort of confederacy that I'm plotting on the back of this envelope, there would be no homicide.
No homicide. Yeah, that's great if we all agree to no homicide. I'm for that.
And so, like, these are the conversations I find myself having, Philippa, about like people trying to agree on some basic values that help to bridge this apparent bifurcation that seems to be occurring everywhere. Well, if you enjoyed that excerpt of Under the Skin that we sent to you free of charge, go over to Luminary, join me there for the rest of our discussion and for all the latest episodes of Under the Skin. Some of the great ones we've listed. They're all great. Go to luminarypodcast.com to start your free trial. See you there.